Hey, how you doing? I hope you're well. I'm Deanna and welcome to my channel. And today we're doing a little bit of a tag. Well, we are doing a tag and it's a bit of a scavenger hunt. And I was inspired because I saw this video on Louise from Foxes and Fairy Tales channel, and it was originally created by Keeping Tabs. I will link them down below. And it's the Do I Have That book challenge. Now, I'm not going to take you across the shelves because you are stacked rather precariously on the tripod on a bunch of books that I'm going to unhaul, and my apartment is an absolute mess. Editing me just popping in to show you my shame, because look at that. Look how ridiculous that is. Don't try this at home, kids. But I figured I would interrupt our current program of horrifically delayed wrap-ups to do this tag. There are 20 questions. I haven't really looked at much at them or given it much thought, but without further ado, I think that's a little dark. Hold on. The lighting is garbage. That's better. Also, if you can hear a screaming bird outside, I'm so sorry. It's spring here in Melbourne and that thing has been screaming all day. I work from home, hence the no makeup look. Apologies about that. So first book is, do I have a book with deckled edges? And I'm very sure I do, and I think I can straight away know which one I'm going to select. Where am I going to put this? There we go. Oh, is that going to blur it? Can you see that? The edges bedeckled. And this is the special edition of Empire of Shadows by Jacqueline Benson. This particular edition was created for Kickstarter, and the idea is that it is presented like it would be a novel in the time period that it is written. So this is a speculative romance adventure story which gives Mummy vibes meets El Dorado, and we are following Ellie, who is a tremendously smart woman in the 1810s. I think this is set in 1818 in London. She's a suffragette and has pretty much fought her way to education, and she wants to be an archaeologist like her brother, who's currently in Egypt, and has unfortunately, despite her phenomenal academic performance, she is a woman, it's the 1800s, and she's landed herself as like a receptionist slash office admin for the records department. While she's there, she ends up finding a artifact and a map to a lost city in Latin America, and the bad guys are after her, so she hightails it out of London on a boat to Latin America, where she teams up with this very like Steve Rogers golden retriever American boy who is there, and he's like the map surveyor, and they toddle off into the jungle to find this lost city before the bad guys do. It is so much fun. I love their dynamic. It does give all the kind of swashbuckling adventures that you want for something like Romancing the Stone or The Mummy. The second book definitely does give the Mummy vibes, but highly recommend. The first 3 books are out, and deckled edges they do have. I don't know, are we doing a book tour? I keep wanting to step forward and then realize you're just getting like a really large close-up of my face. Can you tell I'm not used to filming standing up? If you are interested in these editions, I'm pretty sure when she launches the Kickstarter for book 3, you will have the option to buy book 1, because I hadn't bought book 1 until the Kickstarter for book 2 had gone out. So, oh god, stuff has fallen out. Signed by the author, and it has that kind of very vintage vibe to it. So yes, question 1, I do have that book. Question 2 is, do I have a book with 3 or more people on the cover? And as a lover of Why Choose Romance, I'm very sure I do. I think I'm going to go back to that side of the bookcase because I was reading a series which I'm pretty sure had 3 or more people on the cover. And we're going to go with He's So Slick by Sinclair Kelly. This is the first book in her Not Pucking Mine Omegaverse series, which is a Why Choose Omegaverse hockey romance. Has rom-com vibes. There's a build-a-pack situation in here, and we have 2 Omegas, a female and a male Omega. And our male Omega is a hockey player for the Phoenix Heat, and he doesn't know he's an Omega and just feels that he's run down and is late presenting. And it is at a conference that he goes into his first heat, and his best friend, who's also kind of had a thing for him, helps out along with the other Omega, who is the daughter of the owner of the club. And then they manage to rope in the gruff rival forward, I don't know hockey positions, center of a rival hockey team, and it was funny. It was hot as fuck, and it's Omegaverse, so it has all the fun stuff we enjoy, knots, heats, nests. Next question is, do I have a book based on another fictional story? And I sure as hell do. It's over here on my mythology shelf. I will be back. So I'm gonna go with one of my favorite myth retellings of the Trojan War that is not the Song of Achilles, and Go Ransom by David Malawi. This is a book that I had to read for uni and I absolutely loved it. This entire book tells the story. It's actually, I think, like book 14 or something in the Iliad, of the scene where Priam crosses the battlefield and sneaks into the Greek camp to ask Achilles for his son Hector's body. I mean, is it spoilers if it's a Greek myth? I'm literally gonna say nothing else, but it was absolutely beautiful and one of the few required reading books that I actually enjoyed. Next question is, do you have a book with a 10-letter title? And I'm sure I do, and I'm sure it's going to take me an enormous amount of time to figure that out. I feel like 10 letters is going to be not as big a title as I think it is. Let me check. I'm back and I am going with Not My Type by Evie Mitchell. Evie Mitchell is a fantastic indie author who writes rom-com. She's also got her first paranormal release and she does like a post-apocalyptic MC romance. And this one in particular is following Frankie, who is a sexologist. She is also a wheelchair user and she runs a podcast which is designed to, you know, ask all those questions that people are embarrassed to ask about sex and attraction and bodies and all that stuff. The podcast is called All Access, and I think someone asked her about accessible ways to explore rope play, and then she ends up finding Jay, who is a rigger, and explores and gets her content for her podcast, and more things ensue. And I absolutely loved it. I loved how Jay, recognizing the like inaccessible ways that things were handled, like in particular in his house, the man goes loose with a sledgehammer and it was hot as fuck. So I highly recommend. These are so much fun and I love the covers. Evie Mitchell also does like sweet and not safe for work covers, but I particularly love the fact that we have the representation of a wheelchair user on the cover, and this was so much fun. It shows that romance can still be sweet and hot if you have disabled characters in them, and I think that's wonderful. Next question is, do you have a book that's with a title that starts and ends with the same letter? And I'm sure I do. For context, I haven't updated my spreadsheet in a while, but I own about 1,300 books. Yes, I said that quite softly, but I own 1,300 books, so that there is a chance that I will own this, hopefully. I've just gotta find it. That did take an embarrassing long time, and I've gone with The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Goranich. And if you like Circe by Madeline Miller, which is fantastic, I absolutely love it, this is something I would highly recommend. This looks at Loki's first wife. So it's Norse mythology, I should say, and it follows Agboda. Said that horribly wrong, and she is one of Loki's two wives. And he's his first wife, and she is considered to be the mother of monsters. She's the mother of Hel, of Fenris, and the Midgard serpent. And it was a fantastic look at, I guess, reclaiming her story, which is something that Circe does so well. Beautiful writing. I actually have her second release on my shelves, but she's one of those authors where I keep putting it off because I know I'm gonna love it. This was absolutely beautiful. I was captivated from the very opening moment. So if you like a myth retelling, if you like myth retellings that reclaim women's, you know, goddesses stories, this one is definitely for you. The next question is so easy because it's right behind me. And the question is, do you have a mass market paperback? And of that, I say yes, I have several. But I will go with Moon Called by Patricia Briggs. If you're a paranormal romance girly like I am, this is classic early 2000s paranormal romance, and it is the first book in the Mercy Thompson series. It follows Mercy Thompson, who is a coyote shifter, and she is trying to live her best life. She is a mechanic, but she just keeps getting caught into crazy shit. The guy who mentored her and owns the mechanic is a grumpy fae, and the man who, you know, helped raise her, who is the kind of alpha of all alphas in the States is a little bit worried about her because in this world the Fae were forcibly outed, and so they have some very strict rules and regulations. They are mostly kept on reservation and are monitored by the policing forces, and the werewolves have decided to take a preemptive strike and out themselves in hopes that they can be in control of the narrative that werewolves aren't these mindless, dangerous beasts, which they are, because this man has control of them. And to make sure Mercy's staying out of trouble, he sends Adam to look after her, and he moves in next door. And she's in the tri-state cities. God, it sounds like I'm having a stroke. She's in the Tri-Cities, and one of her biggest clients is a vampire, and it is just all the shenanigans they get up to. Very slow burn on the romance. I don't think it's till like, what, book 5 that her and someone get together, and I completely love it. I do need to catch up with the series, and I'm also reading the spin-off series Alpha and Omega, but if you're in the mood for like an action-packed episodic paranormal romance, this one is 100% for you. Next question is, do you have an author that uses a pen name? And I'm very sure that a lot of the indie authors that I read do have pen names, but let me see what I can find. And I'm going to go with Bonded by Thorns by Elizabeth Helen. This is a sister writing duo. The sisters are Elizabeth and Helen, and this is the stunning Fairy Loot edition, which they included in their Romantasy box. Am I still devastated that I wasn't able to get the rest of the series? Yeah, we don't talk about that. But I did get to meet the wonderful Elizabeth Helen at Babe, and they signed my paperbacks. So all is right in the world, maybe. This is a Why Choose fantasy romance, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and we're following Rosalie, who has been outcast and shamed by her town because her dad is the crazy adventurer who was convinced that his wife was kidnapped by fairies, so spends his days and all their money traveling the world finding a way to slip into the land of the fairies. He somehow manages to do it, and she follows after him. There she bumps into the 4 Fae princes who run the realm. Okay, so we have Kaldarian, the Winter Prince, Ezran, the Prince of Spring, Dayton, the Summer Prince, and Farron, the Autumn Prince. And it is spicy. It is Fated Mates. I actually really loved the first book and all the beats and nods that it had to not only the Beauty and the Beast fairy tale, but to the Disney animated movie. Where we are in the series now, I've only gone up to book 3 because I know book 4 is going to break me, and I want book 5 to be there so I can continue. And where we've started here and where we are in book 3 is crazy. The world's expanding, things are happening. I think it's going to be a 7-book series all up, and I highly recommend if you're in the mood for a romantasy. Why choose? I'm trying to make sure I put the books back once I grab them, because I do not have the energy to put them all back at the end of this. Next we have, do I have a book with a character name in the title? And I do, and it's one of my favorite reads of the year. And it actually has 2, and that is the final revival of Opal and Nev by Dawnie Walton. This is a historic fiction / faux music memoir about this Afro-punk band called Opal and Nev, and it was phenomenal. If you like Daisy Jones and the Six, I think you're gonna love this. This is actually better than Daisy Jones and the Six in my experience, because not only does Dawnie Walton do a fantastic job at creating the vibe of the 70s, which has that like punk, proto-punk era, she also like weaves in the culture and highlights the race concerns. This is a fantastic look at what men, white men in particular, will do to get famous, and how they will kind of leech off the talent and success of women, in particular black women. And it was absolutely phenomenal. I was crying towards the end. The audiobook is fantastic as well. I both listened to the audiobook and read along, because as you can see, it's in like that faux journalist style where the story is told, but they'll intersplice what happened in this particular scene with interviews from various people. We've got Opal, we've got Nev, we've got their sound engineer, their manager, the girl who was at the front desk, Opal's best friend / fashion designer, her sister, their family. Like, it's just incredible and so believable. Like, there were multiple times where I wanted to put the book down, pause it, and search up the song that they referenced, that Opal and Nev had made big on, or look up the iconic photo. This basically follows why this band imploded. After the aftermath of this horrific event at the label showcase, a rival band has a Confederate flag, race tensions are high, kind of a riot ensues, and it leads to the death of their drummer, and kind of follows like what happened, why they imploded, where things go from here. And woven throughout we also have the story of music journalist Sunny Shelton, who has just landed a job as the main editor on a really big music magazine, which is huge for women, but also specifically important as she is a woman of color. And as part of trying to revive the magazine, they're doing these deep dives into bands, and she's picked Opal and Nev because she has a strange connection to them. She loves Opal, but her father was the man who died in the riot, and it was phenomenal. I highly recommend you pick this up. It was so good. I just really want to reread it right away. The next one might be tricky. It is Do You Have a Book with 2 maps in it? Maybe. Let's see. This one is going to be a stretch. That isn't one that is like Kingdom of the Wicked, which has the same map on the end papers. But I'm going with A Dark and Stormy Night by Stephanie Holmes. This is a cozy murder mystery paranormal why choose romance, which I absolutely love. We're following Mina, who has pretty much lost her chance at her career being in fashion. She had studied fashion, was living in New York, interning for a very infamous avant-garde designer, and it's between her and her best friend who's going to get the job. She's find out that she's got this degenerative eye disorder and is slowly going blind, and her best friend, who is not really the nicest of people, I think highlights the fact that some people's childhood friendships are really based on, I guess, longevity and proximity, and maybe that they probably should have stopped being friends a very long time ago. But she tells the designer, and Mina loses her job. She heads back to England, quaint English village, and bullies her way into getting a job at the Nevermore bookshop because it was her only place of sanctuary growing up, and the old man who owns the store no longer owns it. Instead, it's owned by a grumpy beast of a man called Heathcliff. And I forgot to mention, the Nevermore bookshop has this nasty habit of its classic section just spitting out characters and books. So Heathcliff, who runs the store, is actually the Heathcliff of Wuthering Heights infamy, and he happens to be housemates with James Moriarty, the Napoleon of crime and arch nemesis of Sherlock Holmes, and a boy named Quoth, who is the amalgamation of the Raven and the nameless narrator from Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. Fantastic book, absolutely loved it. But, and this could be a stretch, but I think I'm counting it, we have the map of Argleton and map, some might call it a floor plan, but I'm calling it a map of the bookstore, and things are falling out of it. So I think that counts. Also, I will say that I am a rep for Stephanie Holmes. I have a discount code linked in the description. So if you want to get your hands on this beautiful edition, you can buy them directly from her store. If you use my code, you get a discount. Win-win. Christmas is around the corner. Treat yourself. Next question is a book that was turned into a TV show. Now, there are lots of books on this shelf that I wish were TV shows. Actually, I figured it out. One second. And I'm going to go with The White Queen by Philippa Gregory. I actually found this series through the miniseries TV show, which is a BBC adaptation. Fantastic. It is a comfort watch for me. And it was also one of those books that got me back into reading after high school. And this kind of came to me when I was studying my second degree, and absolutely loved the history behind it of the Wars of the Roses, and picked up this book which follows Elizabeth Woodville, who is the Lancastrian widow who ends up charming Edward IV and lands her way on the throne. And we've got political intrigue, there are family infighting. I guess the basis of Game of Thrones was based on the Wars of the Roses as a civil war, everyone vying for the throne. There are 3 books in a series, technically 4, which spins off into our Tudors. I personally don't like the Tudors. I'm a Plantagenet girly all the way, Richard III, RIP. So I stopped after the 4th book. But these are fantastic, and they follow the different queens who are players in the game. Loved it. And we'll say that they're a really good entry point into historical fiction. They are quite easy to read, and they still give you all the details in terms of who's who, what's happening in the time period, and they're like a really good accessible entry point. Next is a book written by someone who was originally famous for being something else. I think I'm going back to my historical fiction shelf. One second. And so far, this is the first book I haven't read yet, but it is Essex Dogs by Dan Jones. Dan Jones is a historian who looks particularly at medieval England. He has a fantastic couple of BBC documentaries. Britain's Bloodiest Throne is one of them, where he talks about the Plantagenets. He's got one on the Wars of the Roses and the one on the Few Kings beforehand, but this is his first fiction novel, and it looks at the 100 Years' War. So Edward III. And I managed to get my hands on this beautiful Goldsboro edition. And the Essex Dogs are a tight-knit company of knights, soldiers from Essex. And they're basically landed in the beaches of Normandy and are there to fight. Looks like it's told from their perspective, which a lot of the time the historical fiction I read in this time period is focused on the perspectives of the court and the kings and the king players. So would be interested to see, I guess, how the decisions these people have made impact the everyday person. So I'm going to go with Dan Jones. I also do have his nonfiction on my shelf, which I also haven't read yet, so I need to correct that in the new year. Maybe. Next is, do I have a book with a clock on the cover? And maybe. Brace yourselves, this could take a while. Unbrace yourselves, that took no time at all. And I'm going with The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is fantastic. It is a very lyrical fantasy which follows the night circus, which is a circus that appears without warning, and we are following a pair of magicians, Cecilia and Marco, who are trying to battle it out in the circus to see which of their mentors has the better teaching ability. And it was just so atmospheric. I want to go to this circus, and in fact I'm pretty much sure I'm due for a reread. This is a BookTube bookish space darling, but it is absolutely phenomenal and I highly recommend. And it's also got me really interested in circus books, and I went down a whole rabbit hole of books set in circuses, and I still have a few on my shelves when I need that circus vibe. Next is, do you have a poetry book? And I do. I have a small shelf of poetry. Let me see which one I'm going to show you. And I'm going to go with No Matter the Wreckage by Sarah Kay. She is a spoken word poet, and I found her through a friend at uni. In particular, in this collection, a phenomenal poem which I absolutely love, and it's one that I will come back to time and time again. This is also her debut collection as well. And I think with her poetry there's just something beautiful about reading it aloud. So the poem in particular I like is called B, and I'll read a couple of stanzas. Instead of Mum, she's going to call me Point B, because that way she knows that no matter what happens, at least she can always find her way to me. And I'm going to paint the solar system on the back of her hands, so she has to learn the entire universe before she can say, oh, I know that like the back of my hand. And she's going to learn that this life will hit you hard in the face, wait for you to get back up just so it could kick you in the stomach. But getting the wind knocked out of you is the only way to remind your lungs of how much they like the taste of air. There are hurts that cannot be fixed by band-aids or poetry, so the first time she realizes that Wonder Woman isn't coming, I'll make sure she knows she doesn't have to wear the cape by herself, because no matter how wide you stretch your fingers, your hands will always be too small to catch all the pain you want to heal. Believe me, I've tried. But baby, I'll tell her, don't keep your nose up in the air like that. I know that trick. I've done it a million times. You're just smelling for the smoke so you can follow the trail back to a burning home, so you can find the boy who's lost everything in the fire to see if you can save him. Or else, find the boy who lit the fire in the first place to see if you can change him. I know she will anyway, so instead, I'll always keep an extra supply of chocolate and rain boots nearby, because there are no heartbreaks that chocolate can't fix. It goes on and on and on, but you get the picture. My camera is flashing at me, so I will change my battery and I'll be back for the next question. Next question is a book with an award stamp on it. And I know there's one that I've currently borrowed from Connor that definitely does have award stamps on it because he complains about it all the time. But let me see if I can find something else. It's probably going to be over there with like my literary fiction maybe, or maybe there might be one on the kids' books. Let me check. This book is so battered. It's actually the copy I've had since I was in grade 6. So what would I have been? Like 11? And it is Dragon Keeper by Carol Wilkinson. And this is a beautiful, as you can see, we've got all the stickers, award stamps there. And it's a beautiful story about a girl named Ping who was a slave girl, and she ends up escaping her captivity with the last dragon and ends up becoming his dragon keeper and goes on a roaring adventure. It is set in the Han Dynasty and I was absolutely captivated. I remember at the time, I don't know, it seemed to be every couple of years in primary school that they would make us do a like required reading and have like a reading journal, and also we had to get practice at reading out loud. So, and the parents had to sign it off each night. I would mostly read aloud to my dad or my mum if she was available. She wasn't working nights. And it got to the point where dad was getting annoyed at me because I was skipping ahead in the book from when I last read to him. So at the end of it, he was like, just give me the book. Just give me the book. I need to figure out what's happening. So yes, what a cute childhood memory. But this is my book with award stamps on it. Next is a book written by an author with the same initials as you. And I'm very upset that I picked David Malawif already because he has the same initials as me. I don't know if I own any other authors that have DM, but let's find out. Okay, the only one I have, which may be a stretch, is Don't Look Now by Daphne du Maurier. This was a Penguin Classics collection that they put out ages ago. I don't remember the actual collection itself, but this is a slow-burning masterpiece of horror, recounting a grieving couple's fateful visit to Venice. Is a short tale of desire and dread. So if we ignore the DM, sure, we'll count it. Why not? It's all I've got since I used David Malawif, just so carelessly in earlier question. Next question is short stories. And yes, I do. Again, near my poetry collection, I have a shelf, like the other half of the shelf is a collection of short stories by one author, and the one above it is anthologies. But let me grab one or two. I say two because these are two of my favorite short story collections, and they're both magical realism, and I couldn't choose between them. So first off, we have What's Not Yours Is Not Yours by Helen Oyeyemi. This was so beautiful. I also love that the spine is exposed. As I said, it's a collection of magical realism short stories where the characters kind of interlock, and from memory, the stories are connected by doors or keys, and it was just so beautiful, and I completely loved it. And this was actually recommended by the author of the next book I will mention, which is The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night by Jen Campbell. She is a booktuber herself. I'll leave her link below, and this is just an incredible collection of magical realism short stories. A point of interest for her is fairy tales, but also disability representation, and I completely loved it. She's also a poet, so she has that like beautiful lush writing style. I devoured both of these in one sitting. They were fantastic. Normally with short story collections, I like to space them out, but these two, I was just so captivated and had to read more. Next is, do I have a book between 5 and 510 pages? I'm sure I do, and I'm sure it's going to take me ages, so be right back. Already I feel like the book isn't going to be as big as I think it is. And I nailed it on my second book, and that is A Wolf in the Garden by Allegra Hall. It clocks in at 509. This is one of my favorite cozy small town monster romances. It is set in New Zealand, or the traditional Maori name, I will learn how to say it. I will get that, I promise. And it's following Ellie, who has a second chance, fated mates relationship with Van, who's on the cover. He was pretty much the boy who was her first love, young love. His family traveled to New Zealand for summer holidays, and when she was in her late teens, they had a whirlwind summer romance, and then she never heard of him again. Also in this world, there is a thing that's happened called the unveiling, where one day the veil between the supernatural world and our world lifted. So all kinds of monsters, werewolves, vampires, gargoyles, orcs, wolf shifters, witches, all came to the surface, which was pretty traumatic for people who knew who they were. People like Ellie, who woke up one morning with, pointed ears, who had no idea that she had supernatural lineage in her family. It's quite traumatic. So she's dealing with that, has been hiding her ears and everything, and it's been 5 years or so, so she feels like she can't really tell anybody because it's been too long, and she doesn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, because like, why didn't she bring it up already, yada yada. And Van finally comes back to the island and is ready to claim his mate, and he is part werewolf, part wolf shifter, and it is so much fun. As I said, 500 pages. I read it in like a day because I couldn't get enough of these characters. Next is a book that was turned into a movie, and I'm sure I've got one. If they were accessible to me, I'd probably pick up Twilight. Ah, hold on. This was turned into a horrible movie and a much better TV show, but I'm going with The Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. This is the first book in his Dark Materials, which is a fantastic middle grade fantasy where we're following this alternate reality where humans have these things called demons. Demons are considered to be your companion, and as a child, your demon, I guess, as you have not figured out who the hell you are, will change shapes intermittently. And once you reach a certain age, your demon will take form. And we're following Lyra, who lives kind of half wild and carefree in the sanctuary of Jordan College in Oxford, and she ends up on an adventure that takes her into the Arctic wilds. Her uncle is a famous explorer who is interested in this thing called dust, and it is beautiful. It is like a counter argument to the kind of heavy Catholic themes and heavy-handed morals of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, and it is fantastic. We've got multiple worlds. This world with Lyra and the demons is pretty interesting, and we're in a world where church and state aren't separated, which is terrifying. Devoured this trilogy in like 2 days. I couldn't get enough. And I have, it's not a prequel or a sequel, I think he's calling it an equal. It's like another series set in this world, and La Belle Sauvage is, apologies to any French speakers out there, is the first book in that series, and I'm really excited to get to it. Next is a graphic novel, which I do have. Very few of, but I do have. And that is Lore Olympus Volume 1. I actually have up until Volume 6 by Rachel Smith. And this is a very beautiful Hades and Persephone retelling. It has a similar vibe to the Scarlet St. Clair series. I'll put them on the screen here. And the fact that Olympus, where the gods live, is kind of this uber modern city, and Hades runs the underworld, which is kind of this cityscape. And Persephone has been granted leave of the mortal world from her mother Demeter, and is getting an education and is dealing with kind of finding out who she is and her growing feelings for Hades. There is trigger warnings for assault, but it's just beautifully handled, and I am absolutely obsessed with the art style. Each god kind of has their own color, which I love, and I did read this originally on Webtoons, but now I'm kind of waiting until the series is done so I can binge them back to back. And the final question is, do you have a book written by 2 or more authors? And yes, I do, and I know exactly what I'm going to pick, so I'll be back in 1 second. And I'm going with Hunting Beauty by Kay Lorraine and Meg Ann. This is the first book in the 3rd series in the Make Games universe. This is the Make Games death, and I love it. And we're following, why can I never remember characters' names? Dahlia, who is a romance author. She, in fact, is getting her kind of big moment as her first series is coming to the big screen. And she has a very public meltdown at her premiere, which lands her in the Blackwood Institute, for lack of a better word, in the Scottish Highlands. Because on top of being a romance author, she's also the sole survivor of a death cult, and she has shoved that trauma way down. So her best friend Kiki, and who's also her editor, convinces Dahlia to go to this wellness retreat in the Highlands because there has been massive media outroar, and the publisher is also pressuring her for more books, and she's just feeling burnt out and uninspired. And when she gets to Blackwood, she realizes it's less a wellness retreat and more an asylum for the supernatural insane. And there she gets roped into a therapy sessions with Tor, who is a tortured Novus Guardian, Kai, who is a tattooist and Fae dragon shifter, Kane, who doesn't know who the hell he is but has a very sexy accent, and a cute adorable dog named Arsehole, and Caspian, the one and only Hook of Peter Pan infamy. I just completely love these books. The audiobooks are fantastic. I have read some of them with my eyeballs, and you can see like there's a transcript of their therapy session, and I love it. And this beautiful edition was done by Books for Days Crate, and I absolutely love these editions, so yay. Please read the Make Games if you haven't already. That is my sole purpose on this earth, I feel, is to get people to read this series. It is a bonkers why choose paranormal romance, and I think everyone would have such a fun time with them, because I did. And we're almost finished it, and I'm very sad about it, but perfect excuse to go back and reread. So there you go. That is a quick trip across my bookshelves to find if I had the books. So at count, I had all 20, although one of them was a bit of a stretch. Actually, 2 of them were stretches, but I'm counting them as a win. So comment down below and let me know if you have these books on your shelves and what books they are. Or you can leave me a magnifying glass emoji, because we're like finding things Maybe. Let's go with that. If you'd like to see more content from me, please like and subscribe. Linked in the description box below will be all these books, reviews if I have them, and links to my other social media channels if you'd like to talk to me or follow me on any other corner of the internet. Anyway, that's all from me today, guys. I hope you're doing all kinds of well, and I'll speak to you soon. See ya!